Paolo Di Canio built a career on unforgettable moments. And to many people, he was a cult hero. But there was one problem. He never tried to hide what he felt, and once the world started watching, he never learned how to control it. Di Canio was never an ordinary footballer. He operated as a deep-lying forward, dropping into midfield to link play, dragging defenders out of position. That freedom made him difficult to mark and dangerous when given space. Lazio gave him his first real platform in the 1988-89 season, where he scored the winner in the Rome derby, running straight to the supporters in celebration and announcing himself as both a talent and a personality. Thanks to his performances and that singular goal, Lazio survived relegation and have been in the top flight ever since. The league then took notice of him, and Juventus brought him into an elite squad packed with attacking talent such as Roberto Baggio and Gianluca Vialli. He lifted the UEFA Cup, but struggled for consistent minutes. Napoli came next, and in a match against Milan, he twisted past Baresi and smashed the ball in from a narrow angle before sprinting towards the fans in celebration. AC Milan followed, where he collected a Serie A title in a side filled with more elite players, once again contributing in important moments while fighting for his place. Across these clubs, the pattern was the same. Di Canio had the quality to belong at the highest level, but he could never get comfortable wherever he played, yet it wasn't due to his football. Whether it was tactics or substitutions, he was never satisfied, and he made sure people knew. Juventus let him go after an animated exchange with Giovanni Trapattoni, and tensions with Fabio Capello led to his departure from Milan. He was capable of competing for a spot against the most proven forwards, but keeping him contained was difficult. Still, clubs kept offering him opportunities. In 1996, Di Canio left Italy for Celtic. The move made sense. Scottish football allowed more freedom for personalities, and Celtic were looking for someone capable of producing moments that could decide matches on their own. Di Canio walked into the side and immediately became that player by scoring 15 goals in his first season. Whether it was his quick feet, audacious touches, long-range strikes, just moments that lifted the stadium, he was pure entertainment. Within months, he had become one of the most technically gifted players in the league, earning him the SPFA Player of the Year award. But as the season went on, the familiar edges of his personality began to show again. Against Hearts, frustration boiled over and he was sent off. In the old firm, tensions ran high and Di Canio found himself at the centre of a heated confrontation, needing teammates to pull him away after he threatened to break Ian Ferguson's legs. Then after his impressive season where he had become one of Celtic's best players, Di Canio demanded a significant wage increase, but the club refused. Rangers had just secured their 9th league title in a row, equaling Celtic's record. It was the wrong time to ask for more money. But rather than accept the decision, he refused to join the squad for pre-season training in the Netherlands. Within a year of arriving and becoming a star, he was already forcing another exit. By the time he left Glasgow, it became clear the problem wasn't anything but Di Canio himself. And yet despite all of it, Sheffield Wednesday stepped forward. Less than a month after he forced an exit, he arrived for a substantial fee. Signing Di Canio was a massive risk for Wednesday, but they saw him as a proven forward entering his prime, someone who could change the course of their season and help them compete against the elite. He delivered immediately, becoming their most creative attacker, dropping deep, drifting wide, creating beautiful moments and scoring from places he shouldn't. His technical ability shined bright in a league full of physical and direct football, and it only made all his goals even more memorable. He quickly became a fan favourite of the Wednesday supporters. The club had just never seen a player as magical as him before. Di Canio was the same player he'd always been, but he was now thriving in a league that would let him play the way he wanted to. Yet he was stubborn, and he would never let anyone get in the way of what he believed in. But when you're playing in the biggest league in the world, you can't avoid the exposure. And for someone who was as emotional as he was on the pitch, that can complicate things. As his time at the club progressed, he didn't let it get to him. He kept playing great football, and that was enough of a reason for Wednesday to keep backing him. But then came the afternoon against Arsenal at Hillsborough. After some push and shove with Patrick Vieira and Martin Keown, the referee Paul Alcock showed him a red card. Di Canio then turned towards Alcock and pushed him to the ground. The entire crowd was baffled. It was something English football had never seen before. Despite the exaggerated tumble from the referee, there was nothing funny about the incident and the FA moved quickly. An 11-match suspension and a £10,000 fine. If Di Canio's reputation on the pitch was already controversial, there was no coming back from this. And for Sheffield Wednesday, it was the end. Whatever he offered on the pitch, They could no longer carry the weight off of it. A few months later, another club decided the risk was still worth taking. West Ham was searching for something different, something to lift them beyond mid-table. Harry Redknapp admitted he was taking a chance, but he knew exactly what he was signing, saying he can do things with the ball that people can only dream of. Di Canio arrived in East London with a band behind him and a newfound reputation that followed him closely. He hadn't played competitive football for months, yet when he finally stepped onto the pitch again, the quality was there. In his fourth match, he scored, and soon after he was dictating games exactly like he used to. It was a special team, with big names like Lampard, Carrick, Ferdinand, Cole and Wright, but none of them were as exciting as Di Canio. The goals were sparse, but they were always memorable. Whether it was a mazy run against Arsenal that would somehow end up in the back of the net, or a volley from an impossible angle against Wimbledon, there was never a dull moment. After winning Hammer of the Year in the 1999-2000 season, it seemed he had finally found his club, but no one expected what he would do next. Late in a match against Everton, the goalkeeper twisted his knee and went down injured as a cross floated into the box. Instead of finishing the open net in front of him to win the game, he caught the ball in his hands and stopped play. Goodison Park reacted with a standing ovation, and FIFA awarded him with the FIFA Fair Play Award the following year. And when Manchester United showed interest in him in the 2001-02 season, he declined. Most players would have gone in a heartbeat, but Di Canio couldn't turn his back on the club that handed him a lifeline in the worst moment in his life. People had started to look at him differently. The same player who had pushed a referee and once left clubs at the first opportunity he could, was now making selfless decisions that nobody thought was possible just a couple of seasons ago. But in 2003, things changed quickly. West Ham were in a relegation battle and the club was falling apart. Di Canio fell out with manager Glenn Roeder and was dropped from the squad. Everything he'd built at the club felt like it had vanished overnight. But when Roeder became ill and had to be replaced, Trevor Brooking stepped in and Di Canio was back in the side. He scored against Chelsea to secure a 1-0 win, and then he scored again in the last minute of the final game of the season against Birmingham for a 2-2 draw. But it wasn't enough. West Ham were relegated. Di Canio's time at the Hammers was over, and he left on a free transfer. But for the first time in years, he actually gave everything he could. He then spent a season at Charlton before deciding to return to Italy in 2004. Going back to Lazio meant more than just another club move. Before he was a professional, he was an ultra, playing for Lazio's youth side on Saturdays, while travelling the country to watch their senior side play on Sundays. Once again, he scored in the Rome derby and ran towards the supporters in celebration. But this time it came with controversy. Di Canio raised his arm in a fascist salute towards sections of the Lazio ultras, and it wasn't subtle. Instead of stepping away from the attention, Di Canio addressed it directly. He described himself publicly as a fascist and not a racist, praised Mussolini in his autobiography, and later revealed tattoos linked to fascist symbolism. He even attended the funeral of a convicted neo-fascist figure where mass salutes were performed. Inside Lazio, familiar issues returned. He clashed with coaches and executives, and his close relationship with the ultras gave him influence that frustrated the club hierarchy. In 2006, his contract was not renewed, and he moved down into lower league football with Cisco Roma. And after just one season there, he retired. But Di Canio wasn't done with football. 3 years later, he became manager of Swindon Town, and almost immediately the same intensity that defined his playing career showed up on the touchline. He argued with players, confronted staff, and was sent to the stands for shouting at officials. Yet at the same time, he delivered promotion, worked through the night clearing a snow-covered pitch with volunteers, and even offered his own money to help keep players at the club when finances were tight. The results were there, but he was on thin ice. In 2013, Sunderland appointed him as manager, and the reaction was instant. The club's vice-chairman resigned over his political history, while unions publicly opposed his appointment and their banners were removed from the stadium. But he kept Sunderland in the Premier League and even secured a Derby Day win away at Newcastle for the first time in a decade. Yet his harsh criticism of the squad led to dressing room complaints, and after a poor start the following season, he was dismissed within months. By the end of his managerial spell in England, his story had come full circle. Paolo Di Canio had the talent to go further than he ever did, but he never learned to control himself. And in the end, that defined his career more than anything else.